And good morning. Welcome to the Out and About program. Today, focus on Stafford County. Steve Webster, your host. Welcome to the program. We tell you everything happening to the south of Great Bend in Stafford County. Joining us once again on the program to make that happen is the Economic Development Director for Stafford County. Carolyn Dunn is in with us. Also, Program Director Ashley Bevan along on the program today. Guys, a lot of things to talk about, and Carolyn, we'll jump right to it. St. John City Council meeting on Tuesday night. A lot of people were there for a lot of different issues, and one of the things that I think you wanted to talk about today on the program was the tax increment finance district, some things that people still have a few questions about that you want to help clear up for them today.
Right. So what we did at the council meeting on Tuesday was to just set a date for a hearing. So there's a process where the community has an opportunity to either provide testimony or ask questions, whatever related to a TIF district. There's two steps to having this implemented for, in our case, the grocery store. So first of all, you implement a tax increment finance district. And in some parts of the state, there would be a whole corridor of town, a whole area of town that is designated your tax increment finance district. And so we first establish a district. In our case, we're just doing the one site. Once we establish, though, that district, site-specific in this case, then we'll go to the next step of having a public hearing and the implementation of a plan specific to a particular project. So maybe just a little bit of context and background about what TIF Districts are. It stands for Tax Increment Finance. And what you're doing is you're designating a part of town that you want to have redeveloped, and the incremental tax, so the tax over and above what has already been collected there, is dedicated back into the development of it. So in this case, we'll just use actual numbers. There's a base of tax there. It's around $2,500 a year that's collected in property tax. Once the improvements are made from this grocery store, the property tax is going to be more like $31,000, $32,000. So we'll say $2,000, $32,000. The incremental tax being collected is $30,000, and that $30,000 can be dedicated to the development costs of the project. Same with sales tax. There's a base of sales tax that's there. This will capture much higher level of sales tax. The incremental, the sales tax over and above what the historical sales tax has been, can be dedicated into the development costs of the project. So it'll be the debt retirement for the construction of this project. First of all, we're going to establish a TIF district. That process requires a 30-day public notice. That's what the City Council passed on Tuesday. They passed a resolution saying we're going to have a hearing, and that hearing is going to be on August 1st. So we'll have that hearing, and the council will have opportunity to establish the district. And then separately, we'll come to the City Council with the request to have a hearing on our development plan specific to this project, and that will be a 30-day notice. If we did that on the August 15th meeting, we'd have 30 days, and then we would presumably have that hearing, and the City Council take action on our particular plan September 19th. So, there's a process here. It'll take a couple months, but public has every opportunity to participate and make comment, ask questions. I think it's probably a pretty good tool, pretty good deal for our county, because it doesn't require, the TIF itself doesn't require any kind of expenditure from the local government of money that they already have. It's only dedicating the new money coming in because of the project back into the development.
Is that the biggest question that you kind of got on Tuesday?
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think that people were opposed to it. They just kind of said, we've never heard of this before. What is it? And it's not that common in this part of the state. I think if we were in the Kansas City area, you'd hear about this a lot more. In fact, I went to a seminar about 2 weeks ago on development finance, and I thought one of the great examples is the Kansas Speedway in Wyandotte County. So that'd be, that's a great example. The Kansas Speedway, the Legends retail area were all developed using the TIFs program. So the Speedway in particular was kind of one where you see, that was a real catalyst to some other development. It's now 20 years into the process. The TIF district typically has a lifespan of 20 years. And in this case, they're about 20 years into it. So now that the debt is paid off with the TIF, they're in the position of that's going to be back on the tax rolls forevermore. And so it's a great deal for Wyandotte County. That's not an insignificant little piece of property there. So ours is obviously on a much smaller scale, but it's the same concept.
Okay, as far as is everything kind of on schedule? I know that with the grocery store, we want to have a store possibly construction started sometime this fall. Everything kind of on schedule for that right now?
I think we're plugging along. We gave the construction plans to contractors this week, and we hope to have those bids back by July 14th. And if everything kind of clicks along the way we want to, we'll be breaking ground in October. That's again, no snafus or anything. And so far, knock on wood, we're on track. But there's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross. We're putting together some grant applications that, are very
extensive,
labor
lengthy,
intensive.
I told Carolyn this morning, I said, Carolyn, never in my 4 years of college did I think I would be working on something like this for my full-time job.
What, you think you're doing a research paper here? Or
kind of. I mean, you do. You have to pull some data together to make your case stronger. And it's just interesting how grant writing works.
It is a federal grant that we're pursuing, and I do feel like it's a little bit like a master's thesis. And it's due July 24th, so we're focused on that. And I think here's the thing. We know that some of those competitive grants are not a sure thing. We know that it would enhance this projects incredibly if we were able to get it, but we're really trying to pull the pieces together that don't make it dependent on that grant. If we could get it, then we'll be able to pay down debt faster. It'll just be a much more secure place to start. But if we don't, we still think we have a path to making it work.
Do you feel like there are some eyes from other parts of the state, possibly on you? Maybe not for a grocery store, but I mean, has anyone reached out and said, "How are you guys doing this? Because we really need some."
I don't know. We'll see in a year.
Okay. Okay.
But we are part of this Healthy Eating Rural Opportunities program through the Sunflower Foundation, and Ashley was going to give some updates on what we're doing as part of that. That is a grant that we received that's helping us with some of the startup costs. And it is a grant program that has participants from around the state. I think there's maybe 8 or 9 different communities around the state that are participating in. To your comment there, well, we're doing something a little different than others are, and I think we're going to be expected to share with the others how it's working, and maybe there is some good things to be learned and applied in other areas.
I think Hodgman County was one of the recipients of that, so someone else fairly close to our location. So
okay, and then one, I guess, with you developing building plans and things like that, is that Stafford County Eco Devo with assistance from, and who else has a part of, this is what we need for this building and things like this? Kind of talk about that process.
Well, Stafford County Economic Development is functioning as the developer.
Okay.
So we own the real estate. We're the one that's collecting the bids. We're the one that's having to, line up the financing and things like that. But as far as how we're going about doing that, we've got a 5-person committee that includes a retired contractor who's giving us really good guidance on a process that is clear and fair, and really, he's helped us develop our building specs. So again, it's clear and well done.
How much does White's Food Liner have input on this, as well as what kind of building they want to operate out of?
And he's on this committee. So he is very much kind of drawing on experience of buildings that he's built before or how they operate and offering suggestions. And it's a very, collaborative process. We trust Pat, and he seems to trust us. So we talk a lot.
What kind of entrance are you going to have out there? You didn't know that yet? Because right now you go by there's a ditch down there, right? And then there's another road, and then there's one back here. So
yeah, I don't know that we're going to be able to alter the ditch, because that's state highway right away. But we do have an entrance off the highway, and the plan does provide for 2 driveways off of 5th Street.
Okay. So the parking will be kind of on the south side of the building, or is it going to be on the west side?
Parking's on the east.
The east.
So it'll be set back off of Highway 280, 281.
Back to the west, parking in the east.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to get a picture.
Plans are showing the pharmacy drive-through to kind of be on the south side of the building, right there along 5th Street.
Right.
It's just exciting.
And fuel's going to be
on the southeast corner.
Wow. Okay. And already the landscape along that corridor through St. John has already changed quite a bit anyway. I mean, it looks nice.
Well, this will be, there's 2 new businesses just to the north of this, and then we get a couple new businesses started in this, and it's a nice facelift. Yeah. Nice progress.
All right, Carolyn Dunn with us today. Also, Ashley Bevan. We're going to talk about that Healthy Eating Rural Opportunities Grant here in just a moment. It's focused on Stafford County on 1590 KVGB 97.7 FM. Back on Focus on Stafford County today, Steve Webster in with Carolyn Dunn and Ashley Bevan. Program director or grant writer, or are you just adding to your resume all the time here, Ashley? I mean,
I definitely don't do all of the grant writing. I help Carolyn as much as I can with some data gathering, but Carolyn is definitely our grant writer in the office.
There is a knack to it, isn't there? I mean,
yes,
you've got to put in there what they want to hear, right?
Well, I sometimes think of it as a sales job. I told Ashley, it's just, know your audience, know how to present what you've got to offer in a way that they want to support it. So I guess it's sales and marketing in a different way.
She's experienced doing it, so
she's very good at. Okay, the Healthy Eating Rural Opportunities Grant. Carolyn, you want to give the background, or I'll just let you guys.
Well, we touched on this a little bit. The idea that we have a grant that's helping with some of the beginning costs of the grocery store, and it's called Healthy Eating Rural Opportunities. Part of what we talked about is in getting this grant and really even just our store planning. When we had the consultant look at the feasibility of this grocery store, it was one thing to look at it with today's population and today's scenario, but we kind of wanted him to help us communicate the need for growth in our town. And we said, what if our town had 300 more people? Could you run some projections for how that would impact the grocery store's viability there? And he did, and it's compelling. And it's probably the same for any other number of businesses in St. John. If we had 300 more people, there's more money to be spent, and everybody benefits from that. So we're trying to work with the town on how we can kind of work together strategically to set the stage for that kind of growth. What do we need as a town to be oriented toward some growth? And Ashley was going to talk about that, but our grant has provided for some facilitated discussions with the city. WSU is overseeing kind of this process, but we've had some meetings that include city council members directly and some others that are highly involved in the community. They, in turn, have gone out and solicited surveys from the community at large, and some pretty clear themes come through.
And we met a couple weeks ago, and our facilitator put together a list of these survey responses, and the things that stood out the most were the lack of businesses and jobs, infrastructure, and then the lack of housing. And so, during this 2-hour time frame, we were sitting together, how can we reverse this? What can we do as a community to make more housing available and create more jobs?
And I think it's not any big surprise. The idea is connecting the dots between that awareness and what are we actually doing, say, in a city budgeting process that actually provides for us to be doing work on those things. Or, whatever other city budgeting is an obvious one, but really even like in terms of the coordination of particular grants that we do, how can we be more clear on how we're going to work strategically together on this? So, like our housing program, we might have the grant, but we need to have the city working with us on land, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's where this goes.
You have to have partnerships with multiple organizations and businesses to make these types of things work. I mean, everybody has to be supportive of what our overall goal is here.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I know Great Bend has gone through this as well, and we've created in the city of Great Bend alone some very nice apartments along 10th Street. Okay, they go up, but then there's an income level for people to move into those, and if you beat that threshold, well, you make too much money, which doesn't seem like a lot of money to be, and you can't live there, or they call them low-income housing, developments that, the homes that are going in there, $185,000. Well, that's
yeah,
that's pretty good. So it's kind of hard to understand sometimes on these.
There's a lot of things where, it just takes, I guess, some working to get through it.
Right.
But when I think of, the barriers to business, we want more business creation.
Right.
But there's some, I think, less than obvious barriers to getting businesses started in towns. One of them is literally, where do you put your business? I think it's one of those great, kind of paradoxes. We think that there's not enough business in town. We see empty places and we think, oh, any store could go in there. But really, when it comes right down to it, I've said this a lot of times before, somebody owns that piece of property and they may not be willing to do something different.
Well,
it doesn't make it actually available for somewhere, So again, one example of the kind of things that we might be taking a more proactive approach to is if we had, either a business park or, some element of real estate that is within our control to actually market and make available on very, clear terms. And
Like the Port Authority.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, everyone wants to build back up the town square because that's what everyone remembers is
right
back in the good old days when,
right.
The
But as an example, those those not all those buildings are actually actively available to use.
You go to battle every day, don't you? We're going to take a quick break. Carolyn Dunn, Ashley Bevan with us here on Focus on Stafford County on KVGB 97.7 FM. Welcome back, Focus on Stafford County today. Steve Webster, Carolyn Dunn, Ashley Bevan with us on the program today. I'll let you start here. We've got about 4.5 minutes here.
Well,
Sunflower Community Investments, airport site selection.
Well,
or something else.
No, I'll just real briefly, I think that this is kind of a neat thing. I don't know how much to get into the details of this because it is kind of one of those detailed type of things, but there is a new community development entity forming in Kansas that I happen to be on the board for, and it recently made application for a $45 million allocation of New Markets tax credits from the federal government. So, you made quick mention of the Port Authority. This is kind of some of that foundational work kind of stuff that kind of, I hope, could build into making some more substantial kinds of investments more feasible in rural Kansas. So, yeah, I'm looking at it from, we'd love to get some more things going in Stafford County. But when I look at the map of the eligible areas of this particular program in this listening area, well, it's also Larned and Great Bend and Hayes and Russell and Ellsworth and Lyons and Reno County and Kinsley. All these kinds of other places could be eligible for this program too. So I think it'd be kind of exciting because Kansas doesn't currently have a entity doing that work right now. So
why is Stafford County on this list of that you're looking at this map here? Then is it?
It's defined by severely distressed census tracts. So it is an indicator of low income in part. And then the other thing, and this is kind of what pulls Stafford County into it, high migration rural areas. Our sign of distress is that we're losing population, but it's, so it's an incentive program intended to counteract those kinds of economic factors.
Okay, airport site selection. What's going on here, Carolyn?
We had a meeting about 2 weeks ago where the consultant brought back her conclusions about what locations could be feasible in Stafford County. And one of her comments was, there seems to be problems with all of them. We do have a lot of barriers to, a 4,000-foot runway in that part of the county that's both close to highways, close to the hospital. We have a railroad track, 2 high-voltage power lines, a couple of highways, cell phone tower. There's not very many places you actually physically could put one without there being distinct barriers. But there's 2 locations generally that could work, and one of them is in the area between the town of St. John and US 50 highway and west of 281 highway. And the second one would be 8 miles east of 281 and 50 and north of 50 highway. So
what's the next step with this then?
Kind of some revisions, tweaking the options and reporting back to the county commission.
Okay. I always like this. You guys send me these notes. I hope this fills a half hour.
I never feel like I have enough to talk about, and we didn't hit the whole list, did we?
No, we sure didn't. Well, Carolyn, appreciate it. Ashley, thanks for coming in. Keep up that grant writing. I know it's exciting for you, but very, very, very important to what's going on. That's going to do it for our show today. Focus on Stafford County here on 1590 KVGB, 97.7 FM. news coming up next. Have a great day, everybody.